Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode on Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host, Sayan, as some of you would know, and I'm here to talk about what's the mental health cost of being reachable all the time. I mean, we live in a world where being unreachable feels almost irresponsible, right? But what is this constant connectivity doing to our mental health? Today, I have the privilege of speaking with someone who has spent over 15 years helping people navigate exactly these kinds of pressures. Dr. Vassilia Binensztok is a psychotherapist with a community of over 95,000 people on Instagram who turn to her for insights on anxiety, trauma response, nervous system regulation, and relationships. Her work has been featured in Forbes, Yahoo News, CEO Magazine, and Amazon's Women Breaking Barriers. What I really appreciate about her is her ability to translate, I would say, complex psychological concepts into language that actually makes sense and that we can use in our day-to-day life. So, I welcome you all to the show, and Dr. Binensztok, it's a pleasure to have you here with me. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to get into these topics.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. When we talk about being constantly reachable, Dr. Wazilia, right? What exactly are we referring to from a mental perspective?
I think that that's a great point that being constantly reachable, meaning that we always have our phones with us. So whether it's being texted or called or just checking social media apps all the time, it's really hard to resist, right? It's very hard to resist looking at your phone if you hear it buzz, or just knowing that maybe during work hours or even after work hours that you might be getting some messages. It's hard to shut that off and to resist the feeling like you need to go check on that. I think what you said is really spot on. It's that we start to feel almost like we're being irresponsible by not always checking our messages or always being reachable. People expect responses really quickly these days, because they expect that we always have access to our devices and so that we could see their messages immediately and they want us to respond immediately. But I think that creates a lot of pressure, and I think it's also unhealthy when it's done at certain hours. So as soon as you wake up, or when you're trying to go to bed, or when you're trying to connect with someone else over a meal or something like that,
Hmm.
it puts a lot of pressure on the person, and it also can dysregulate the person at times when they are supposed to be relaxing. Like when you're waking up, you're supposed to be easing into the day.
Yeah.
When you're in sleep, right, you're supposed to be winding down. When you're connecting with someone else or doing something just for you, you're supposed to be present. Those are the things that are healthy for us. If you're constantly being pulled away from that, it can be ultimately unhealthy for you.
Yeah, so it's that anticipation, all the time that you would be, you're getting these messages. I mean, that's a very relatable way to, start off because I think so many of our listeners can relate to that feeling of being constantly, checking of the phones, being wired, like you said. But I mean, can you really break down what's actually happening inside our bodies when we are in this state? Because I don't think, turning that notification off is the only solution to the problem.
It's not the only solution to the problem, it's true, because have you ever left your house and forgotten your phone? Or have you ever done something where you can't have your phone and you still have the urge to check it, to look at it? We were wondering what's going on or if anyone messaged you, and that's even when you don't have your device. So you're right. I don't think it's just about turning off notifications. As long as you are wired into the device, then you're going to be thinking about it. And I think that that's what happens. It's really like a matter of conditioning. We have become so accustomed to this constant stream of information, constant stream of messages, always being on in some way. Even if we're using that to relax or to communicate in a way like with friends, we're still always on. And so you become really conditioned to be receiving that information and to be really, like, tied to your device all the time. Your brain just starts to expect it. And it's almost like a withdrawal. When you don't have it for too long, your brain starts to wonder, where is it? Because so much of checking our phone, it's not just like work emails and things like that. It's things that give us some sort of spike, some sort of response, whether it's positive or negative, right? So we get a text we were looking forward to, or we check Instagram and see that we got a lot of engagement on a post, and those are like good spikes, right? They give us dopamine. We want to see that stuff. That's a reinforcement to checking the devices. So even if we get negative stuff, right? So if you get a stressful email or a stressful message or something like that, you still have a spike in hormones and neurotransmitters. And then that, in a way, even though it's negative, is still a reinforcement. So knowing that this device is somehow tied to these internal feelings, your brain really becomes wired to always be looking for it.
Right. That's I believe you just nailed it, because it's a very important it's an important distinction in itself, because I think, if we trace it back to the evolution of connectivity, right? I think this isn't something something conscious, like this wasn't a conscious choice, I would say, but rather something that evolved, because after all, I see humans as social beings, right? So do you think there are any benefits to this level of connectivity, Dr. Vassilia, rather than just, I mean, would you say it's just detrimental?
Yeah, and, I wanna comment also, I think it is something that evolved. I think about back when I didn't have a smartphone, when smartphones really weren't a thing, and then when I first got one, but they were so limited in what they could do, I would leave my phone in another room. When I went to bed at night, I would leave it plugged in the kitchen. It wouldn't even occur to me to just have it with me all the time, but as these features changed, as things got more fast-paced and more expected, we started evolving to use it more and more. But I do think that there are some positive things to it. Think
Like,
especially in terms of like the connectivity, like you said, um, that if we need somebody, we know that we can reach out and somebody would be available. That if, we know that if people who worry about if there's an emergency, they don't have to worry so much because they know that they would get some kind of notification. It kind of calms their fears. If you're in a group text or you're always texting a good friend and you have someone to share with or just touch base with, and it feels good. I think those are all positive things. Or think about all the people that we're connected to on social media that we otherwise might have lost contact with. And I think that's very positive too, that we kind of get to stay connected in some way, even if we're not always getting to see each other.
yeah, I think that's true. Because social media and the internet in general have made that impact, that we could stay connected with so many others that otherwise wouldn't have been possible. But I think that's just one side of the coin, right, Dr. Vasilia? Because I think this constant connectivity, right? I mean, we are in a state wherein we are always surrounded by people, and you know what? There's this interesting thought process. It's called a paradox of I forgot the term that was coined by a psychologist, but it was referring to, because what you see on social media, right? It's exactly designed to what you want to see, right? And what it does to your mental is that you're in this state, right? In this, I would say, in this bubble, right? Where you only see what you want to see, because the algorithm just knows what you want to see, right? And so you have this mentality or the mental that, whatever you think about a particular thing is right. Right, because if you disagree to that, I mean, the algorithm would and detect that and would remove it from your recommendations, right? So I think being constantly surrounded by people who validate you, right? And in this constant connectivity, I think it has also made us disconnected from ourselves. Like, how often do you see someone, in their 20s, or I mean early 30s, being by themselves? I mean, rarely, right? Because I think social media or the internet has just set that benchmark for itself, right? I mean, we don't, I would say we don't, um, yeah, what's the term for it? I would say we don't normalize, solitude. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, when you mentioned that, it's funny because I've worked with some people before that, they judge their relationship based on some of the things they see on social media. And some of those things are useful, right? So, how we want to be treated in a relationship, improving communication in a relationship. There are useful things out there. But then there are also things that kind of might show relationships in a light that is only positive or doesn't make sense. So I'll see people seen worked with people sometimes that have said, I see that in a relationship, somebody should always be posting you on their Instagram, posting you on their story. And if they're not, then they're somehow not a good partner. And so we see things like that because we're not seeing different sides of a relationship, or we're just seeing what kind of content someone wants to create. That's their platform, that's their message, and there's only one type of message, and it's not the only message you should take in, even if it's a good one. But I see people actually evaluate their relationships based on the things they see on social media. Um, and then, of course, especially in America, politics is one of those areas where you see that we do really live in a bubble. Whatever you're interested in, whatever you like, wherever you follow, that feeds the algorithm. You're going to start seeing more and more things that just tell you what you already believe, or anger you because they know what you already believe. And then they're going to start showing you like things like that that get you riled up, which is not healthy to be that tuned in or that upset all the time, even if even if what you believe is really positive and good. It's just not healthy for us to always be into that. Um, and then I do think that it could possibly dissolve the way that somebody thinks for themselves, their ability to be alone, their ability to not rely all the time on external feedback. That's something I also see with AI tools like ChatGPT, where people get so used to it, they stop trusting themselves. Like they might not be trusting their own writing, or trusting their own ideas. They got to run everything through AI programs, through chat in order to be validated or improve upon it. And look, I'm saying sometimes that's useful. I do it myself too. But I think when we rely on this too much, we stop
Yeah.
know what we really think, stop being able to just trust ourselves and rely on our own
Stop
idea.
the thinking process, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Stop
that.
being- Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that acknowledgement is so important because there's this constant, I would say, there's a cycle of unlearn and then relearn, right? But with what you said, Dr. Vassilia, right, there is no unlearn because we are always in an environment that, sorts of, I would say, ego massages us or, validates us, right? But, I think a lot of the advice that he gave is, I would say, really profound, Dr. Vassilia. So when it comes to digital well-being, right? Um, given those realities that we're living in, or I would say navigating through right now, what can people actually do to preserve uh, their well-being, both, on cam, off cam, I mean, on phone or off phone, whatever that is. So what would you say?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of suggestions. One suggestion is I think about, I grew up before there were cell phones, like there were car phones, but there weren't cell phones. They certainly weren't smartphones. And back then we had a very similar problem. It just came in print. So the things you saw in magazines back then or on television might give you a false sense of yourself or what to expect, right? So we saw images of how models looked or how you're supposed to look, how you're supposed to dress, and you'd always be comparing yourself to that. And ultimately,
And that's a big scam, I would say.
it is a scam, especially, back then things were airbrushed. Now they're filtered. It's kind of the same thing. So I'd say one thing is just keeping in mind that you're consuming, like you said earlier, yeah, a curated representation of somebody's life, of how somebody looks physically, of what their home looks like. And then there are people who make money off of this, which is fine. That's their business, is to maybe it's an account about home decoration. And that's their business, is to decorate their home or decorate parts of their home to show it to you, to sell you either products or design services, which is fine. But you have to understand that that's not necessarily a realistic idea of what your home should look like. So things like that, instead of making a comparison, just take the content for what it is and kind of keep in mind that it's maybe not super realistic and that you or your stuff or your job or whatever it is doesn't have to look like that. I think you can also train your algorithm personally, even though it's very hard not to consume news. I don't follow any news sources. I mean, I end up seeing the news anyway, but I don't want it in my feed. On my personal Instagram, I follow um, just pleasant stuff, houses, vacation, travel stuff, clothes, pretty things, like things that kind of put me in a good mood and make me feel nice and or funny things, like funny videos that I share with my friends. So kind of like train my algorithm to just give me that stuff. So that I don't open my phone, I suddenly see something that really like activates my nervous system in a negative way. So I would say if you could kind of just keep in mind like what is actually represented on social media and kinda curate what you do take in, and then take time to just unplug as well, and also not believing everything you see on social media. In this day and age, everything can be verified. You might have to work a little to try to verify whether it's true or not, but you can. So if something strikes you as really shocking or bizarre, if you want to, you can take the time to actually verify how true that is so that you're getting the full information.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's again the good thing about connectivity in our general lives, and I would say that's a compassionate approach. Not just forcing yourself to change your behavior, but understanding and working with the underlying, emotional drivers, I would say. So, Dr. Vazilia, as we, move toward wrapping this up, I just want to ask for all of us listening to this right now, what gives you hope in this era? Are you still seeing positive changes? And perhaps what's one piece of advice that you would want to leave behind for our listeners?
Yeah, it's been a tough time, right? In the world with all so many things going on here in the States, all over the world. It has been really challenging to stay positive, you know? But I still believe that there's so much good stuff in the world. It's like we're talking about here, like what you're focusing on, what your algorithm is giving you. It's not a representation of everything that's going on. It's kind of a representation of what you already been looking at. So keeping in mind that there are still a lot of great things going on in the world. People have inherent resilience, people have inherent humor, joy. There's still music and love and joy and people connecting and really good things that are happening every minute of every day all around the world, besides the awful things that also we do read about. So try to balance that, balance that perspective.
Yeah, I think indeed. I mean, there are definitely the good thing happening around in the world as well. Like you said, it's just that um, yeah, we're just limited to what we are used to seeing on social media, right? Or the news or the internet in general. So, Dr. Visilia, thank you so much for, bringing, I would say, a practical version, or I would say clarity to this conversation. So, it has been incredibly valuable and relatable for me and my listeners, I'm pretty sure. So, before we wrap this off, we'd love to ask for our listeners who, want to learn more about your work or connect with your community, where can they find you at?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me. You can find me mostly on Instagram. My handle is Dr. Vassilia, just my first name. And in there, you can find in my bio a link to my Substack where I post essays 4 times a month. And I also just launched my own podcast. It is like just coming out this week. It's called The Hidden Story, and it's interviews with real people about their stories of resilience. So you can check that out on my Instagram through my link in bio.
Perfect, perfect. So I'll include the details in the show notes for you all folks, so you can directly find her on Instagram. And with that, to all our listeners, I just want you to thank you for spending this time with us, whenever and wherever you're listening to this right now. And I just want you all to remember that your mental health actually does matters. Your boundaries matters. What you want to see, or what you want to unlearn and relearn matters. And you deserve time to rest and recharge without feeling guilty about it. So that's the thought that I would uh, like you all to think about for a few minutes after we're done with this conversation. And this has been Sayan on Healthy Man Healthy Life, and until next time, just take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.